All right, what's poppin'? It's your boy Big Rich. Let me put up a Ndrangheta Weekly News. We haven't done Ndrangheta Weekly News in a while, so let's get right down to business. Ndrangheta governing body in Greater Toronto Area. Latest developments. Quote, the Ndrangheta is made like an octopus. The octopus has the head and tentacles. Today, the head in Calabria may be economically stronger, and tomorrow, the tentacles may be stronger. That was said by Rocco Varacciali, government witness, a disgrazia. Ex-full member of Ndrangheta local of Torino, Turin, dependent of the mother locale of Natili di Carreri. The latest Italian police operations against the mother locale of Saderno, Project Canadian Ndrangheta Connection 1 and 2, has brought forth many results and has led to knowledge concerning the latest organizational developments registered in the Ndrangheta of Saderno in the Greater Toronto Area. Its most important projection, as the Italian magistrates call it, outside the borders of Calabria, has been described in previous articles, in which two important circumstances that are believed to have contributed to breaking the balance between the locali, crime families belonging to the Ndrangheta locale in the singular, that make it up. These circumstances stated were as follows. 1. The murder of Carmine Verducci, probably top rank of the Toronto's locale dependent of the mother locale of Marina di Gioioso, Jonica, based on some wiretaps collected by Italian magistrates. Project Aceto Cruppi, as part of an all-internal clash with at least one other locale, that of the Figliomeni, dependent of the mother locale of Saderno. Contrast that has degenerated probably due to the absence of the supreme bosses of the three mother locali of Saderno, respectively, Giuseppe the Master Commisso, that's whose picture you see up there, Antonio Orsino, and Rocco Aquino, all of whom were imprisoned and therefore in the materially impossibility of activating the typical mediation mechanisms of the disputes that serve precisely to avoid bloodsheds among the full members of the Ndrangheta. And number 2, the project's Ophenix, which had led to the arrest and subsequent conviction of Giuseppe Pino Orsino, brother of Antonio, supreme boss of the mother locale of Gioiosa Jonica. It's an important fact to remember, since it was mentioned several times in the acts of other Italian project, Morsasugli Appalti, vice on contracts. The harsh reproach of Giuseppe the Master Commisso in person to Antonio Orsino for granting a higher rank of Ndrangheta to his brother Giuseppe Pino, resident in America, to intend Canada, which was against the rules, not having informed the advance of the bosses of the other locali, and in particular Rocco Aquino and Antonio Coluccio, top bosses of the neighboring mother locale of Marina di Gioiosa, Jonica. The brother came and he, Antonio Urso, gave him another thing, rank of Ndrangheta, without saying anything, said the master to another associate. Note that in the same intercepted conversation dated February 2010, the master said, in America, they, the men of Ndrangheta of Gioiosa Jonica, stay under the Sidernesi, the men of Saderno, certifying the subjection in Toronto, and that he had to know about the new rank granted to Giuseppe Pino Orsino because he had said to Antonio Orsino, they are my paesani there. In the aftermath of the project or Phoenix, it can therefore be said that probably all the main locali, not dependent on the mother locali of Saderno, had suffered serious damage, and that instead the locali dependent of the mother locale of Saderno were still practically intact, apart from the less significant loss of at least one element. We refer to the arrest and deportation to Italy in March of 2018 of Tito Figliomeni, born 1969, cousin of Angio and Cosimo Figliomeni. In this context, there would have been a fundamental evolution. The local dependent of the mother locale of Saderno, having the majority, would seem to have decreed the dissolution of the Camera di Controllo, Board of Control, of the Ndrangheta of Toronto, as it was historically composed and organized, by replacing it with a Crimin of Siderno reserved only for them. Read in other terms, it was a sort of expulsion motivated by the fact that other locali, as already emphasized historically in subjection, were no longer reliable. A split accelerated in recent years due to an extraordinary economic strength acquired by at least one or more locali dependent on the mother locale of Siderno. Even within the Ndrangheta, a lot of money corresponds to a lot of power. Facts. This development can be deduced from the two Italian projects mentioned above that literally mention a crimin di Siderno, crime of Siderno, in the greater Toronto area. We repeat, of Siderno, thus not open to locali from other Calabrian towns, governed by a body composed of 4 apical subjects. Commisso Francesco Elias Juscelto, fugitive in Canada in relation to the projects La Forza Politica and Esero Krupi connection. Figliomeni Cosimo, mentioned above, recipient of an arrest warrant issued in relation to the project Canadian Ndrangheta Connection 2, and already fugitive in Canada in relation to the project Esero Krupi Connection. Commisso Rocco Remo, mentioned above, recipient of an arrest warrant issued in relation to the project Canadian Ndrangheta Connection 2, and a subject named Filippo, not better identified. Reading the 3 known surnames, it's well understood how, in this new governing body, the lion's share is played by 2 blood families. 1, the Commisso family, by virtue of its long criminal tradition in the greater Toronto area, as well as a direct kinship with those Commissos who, for decades, are the supreme bosses of the mother locale of Siderno. 2, the Figliomeni family, by virtue of the extraordinary quick money it has been able to make on Canadian soil, as well as its honorable criminal tradition. Keep in mind that Vincenzo Figliomeni, born in 1937, called the brigand father of the brothers Angelo and Cosimo Figliomeni, was murdered on November 19, 1988, based on recent reconstructions of the magistrates, by a Costa family member during a bloody internal feud in the late 1980s and early 1990s between the Costa crime family and the most powerful Commisso crime family, of which Vincenzo was a main strength. Picture of Vincenzo right here. A split, we said, proven by an episode found in the investigative documents of the same projects. In fact, in them, it's clearly reported a lack, that is, in the language of the Ndrangheta, a slight fault, but still a fault, followed by an oral reprimand against Commisso Francesco Elias Sicchio di Grazia, an important player of the Commission clan, fugitive in Canada, Project Esero Krupi connection, to whom is complained by being too close in that territory to other Ndrangheta clans distinct from the locale of Siderno. A precise order has therefore been issued, and it can be assumed, according to which the full members of the Ndrangheta from Siderno in the greater Toronto area had to minimize relationships with men of Ndrangheta dependent of other mother locali. And perhaps it was not and isn't only a question of reliability. Perhaps the decision would also be justified by another fact which, if confirmed, would be sensational. There could be needs of so much and strict confidentiality connected to the growth, up to perhaps the highest ranks, of one or more residents in Toronto within the same mother locale of Siderno. An unprecedented fact justified by the absence in Calabria of prominent elements in state of freedom after the arrest not only of the master, but also of the 2 other subjects of the caliber of Ricardo Rumbo, born in 1962, and Antonio Galea, born in 1962, and at the same time by the extraordinary enrichment that some blood families belonging to the Ndrangheta in the greater Toronto area are enjoying. criminal skills and wealth that the following few subjects, when temporarily released after their arrest following previous investigations and convictions, didn't have. In reference to 1. Carmelo Muia, faithful lieutenant of Giuseppe the Master Commisso. Carmelo Muia was the boss of Ndrangheta, a subunit of the biggest locality, Ndrin, in the plural, of Saderno, but evidently out of requirements to be the supreme boss. 2. Santo Rumbo, arrested for the last time in August 2010 in Luxembourg, and son of Ricardo Rumbo, currently detained under 41 bis regime, the so-called tough detention, considered a top rank of mother locality of Saderno. Number 3, but especially Cosimo Commisso, the boss of two worlds, as he was once called precisely for the ramifications of the locality of Saderno in Canada. The previous supreme boss before the master, his other cousin, however, 26 years of continuous stay in prison and from 2015 under house arrest, had convinced him to move his residence, once released, from Calabria to Umbria region in central Italy, where he will be arrested again in December of 2019 as the main target of the project called Core Business, a project that the magistrates wrote represents the natural continuation of the operation Acero Saderno Connection, in particular about a variety of activities set up by Cosimo Commisso linked to the preservation of the Krupi's assets. The boss sent messages to other associates in Saderno and identified soils in the Perugia area to be used as vineyards for the production of wine to be marketed in Canada through contiguous subjects to the Commissos. It's therefore possible that in this historical phase in Saderno, the upper ranks of the single Ndrin are assigned, but not that of supreme boss of the mother locality, an assignment that most likely attends the release from prison of an element with the necessary criminal skills. Therefore, a substantial power vacuum that, in the meantime, may have gradually been filled, formally or not, by one or more Toronto resident subjects, even though they are physically thousands of miles away from Calabria. After all, it would explain why, as the Italian magistrates reconstructed Vincenzo Muia to find the perpetrators in the murder of the aforementioned brother Carmelo, after having carried out his own investigations in Saderno, and a literal call to arms addressed to his entire Ndrangheta in April of 2019, had gone to Canada for the sole purpose, as he himself stated, to meet with Angelo and Cosimo Figliomeni to collect information so he could have unleashed his revenge. Quote, "If I don't know who killed them, how can I sleep peacefully? How can I sleep?" Unquote. It is what was picked up him saying in a wiretap. An initiative that turned out to be a serious misstep, as Detective Sergeant Carl Mattiden of York Police underlined. We happened to be live with wiretaps when they traveled here. Despite the maniacal attention to evade wiretapping, not only within any enclosed space, but also outdoors. Even outside they hear you, he said. You put the directional and they hear what you say. In fact, this trip to the Toronto area and the related investigation by the Italian magistrates against the Ndrangheta of Saderno, combined with an investigation launched in 2017 by a police York task force that, since October 2018, has selected, among all, the Figliomeni clan as the most viable, high-level targets to focus on. Project name, Sincaro. It's therefore no coincidence that in perfect harmony and direct collaboration, the presentation of Project Canadian Ndrangheta Connection 1 and Project Sincaro took place on the same day, July 18, 2019, simultaneously in Reggio Calabria and Toronto. Regarding the Project Sincaro, it's worth noticing the investigative strategy that was adopted by the Canadian police authorities, since it's basically impossible to prosecute crimes such as murders, attempted murders, shootings, arsons, drug trafficking, racketeering, etc., due to the absence of witnesses and turncoats. The investigators were forced to adopt the only possible strategy to target the Figliomeni clan that they themselves illustrated during the presentation of the results of the project. Quote, "We need to focus on taking down a criminal organization by attacking the finances, the laundering of dirty money, and large profits from proceeds of crime that have built these organizations over decades and allowed them to thrive. And in regards to the involvement of the Canada Revenue Agency in the investigation to help trace the money, like Al Capone thought he didn't have to report his taxes, Angelo Figliomeni was wrong. Therefore, an investigation aimed at hitting the capital accumulated by this clan through the well-known business chain that begins with the running and management of public places where illegal gambling is practiced and continues with loan sharking and the violent collection of outstanding debts of the gamblers. Investigators targeted 11 cafes which generated much of the money for the Figliomeni family, said Detective Sergeant Carl Matherton of the Organized Crime and Intelligence Services Traditional Organized Crime Task Force. A large portion of this income stems from the use of video gaming machines and the loans, some as high as 60% interest, made to patrons to keep them gambling regardless of the amount of debt they incurred, he alleged. The astronomical interest rate, or juice as it's known, keeps the organization in a continual flow of illegal funds. People caught in this cycle were gambling away their life savings while members of this criminal organization used intimidation and violence, including shootings, arsons, and other threats to collect their outstanding debts, the sergeant continued. Cycle that closes with the reinvestment of illicitly accumulated capital that hardly leaves no trace. The project identified an undisputed boss, Angelo Figliomeni, and under him 9 subjects dedicated to the running of illegal gaming houses. Over a dozen, many concentrated in Vaughan, almost certainly territory within which the presence of competitors were not allowed, dedicated to the running of illegal gaming houses and to the money laundering. There were therefore no charges in the drug trafficking field. This didn't prevent the obtaining of undoubtedly inviolable results, such as the seizure of about $35 million in luxury items, divided between 27 homes worth an estimated $24 million. 23 high-end cars worth $3.5 million, including 5 Ferraris, one of which was worth $880,000, about $1 million in cash, and $1 million in jewelry and Rolex watches. ATM machines and gambling machines confiscated, and the delisting of between 400 and 500 bank accounts in Canada. This is who they say allegedly the boss is, Angelo. Nevertheless, the investigation hit only one part of the organization, excluding in particular the military wing of the clan that is made up of perpetrators as well as instigators, a broad criminal context that whoever is a part can move and operate without running the risk of being the recipient of the specific and serious accusation of mafia association, contrary to what happens in Italy. It's therefore a project that will likely not be able to produce long-term prison sentences. Prospects well known to the accused that, like a cat biting its tail, reduce almost completely the odds of any collaboration with the judicial authority. Thus ends my exposition. I believe that the illustrated framework remains logically connected. It demonstrates, at one hand, the current difficulties of the Ndrangheta under the continuous indictments of police authorities in Italy, and on the other hand, the relatively impunity it still enjoys in Canada. Impunity that could be greatly reduced by recognizing the criminal offense of the Mafia Association in the Criminal Code of Canada, so that heavier prison sentences could be imposed and additional deportations of residents in Canada to Italy could be made possible. Great article. It's been a long time since we did an NWN Ndrangheta Weekly News. Of course, this is about the greater Toronto area. So salute to all my Canadian listeners. Salute to everybody. Have a great evening. Salute.